There's something deeply wrong with SpongeBob SquarePants, and the evidence has been staring us in the face for 25 years. Not a fan theory, not a meme. I'm talking about an episode so disturbing, Nickelodeon never should have let it air. An episode that accidentally exposes what Bikini Bottom really is. Because SpongeBob, Patrick, Squidward, none of them are actually living underwater. They're somewhere far darker, and the clues have been hidden in plain sight since season 1. Once you see them, you will never watch this show the same way again. Alright, let's talk about the theory that refuses to die. The one that's been lurking in the depths of internet forums since, 2008. You know the one, the SpongeBob mental hospital theory. And before you roll your eyes and click away, hear me out, because there's one episode that actually makes this whole thing way more believable than it has any right to be. But first, we gotta break down the basics. The theory goes like this. Bikini Bottom isn't actually a cheerful underwater town. It's a mental hospital. And every single character, they're patients dealing with their own specific disorders. Wild, right? But when you actually look at the evidence, it starts to get creepy how well it fits. Let's run through the roster real quick. SpongeBob himself. Classic ADHD and hyperactivity. I mean, remember when he spent an entire afternoon obsessively perfecting his bubble blowing technique? The guy was literally bouncing off the walls teaching Squidward about the technique. And we're talking the kind of manic energy that would exhaust anyone within a 5-mile radius. That's not just enthusiasm, that's textbook hyperactivity. Then we've got Patrick. And look, we love the guy, but let's be real. Patrick shows signs of intellectual disability throughout the series. There's a whole iconic moment where he can't even grasp the concept of his own name and identity. Or when he literally just copies everything SpongeBob does because he can't figure out how to function independently. It's played for laughs, sure, but it's also a pretty consistent character behavior. Squidward? Oh man, Squidward is walking, talking clinical depression. This dude is miserable 24/7, and we all just accept it as normal. Remember when he literally used guilt and manipulation to get what he wanted, exploiting his friend's emotions? That's depression combined with learned helplessness turned toxic. The guy hates his job, he hates his neighbors, hates his life. Textbook depressive symptoms. Sandy's interesting because she's always overcompensating. She's constantly showing off her inventions, her skills, her intelligence. Like when she gave that whole elaborate tour of her rocket, making sure everyone knew just how impressive and advanced it was. That screams narcissistic traits and overcompensation. She always needs to be the smartest, strongest, best at everything. Mr. Krabs and his obsession with money? That's not just greed, that's OCD and hoarding disorder. The man once chased someone down over literal pocket change, screaming about $2 like his life depended on it. He counts every penny, obsesses over every transaction, and cannot let go of wealth. Classic obsessive-compulsive behavior mixed with hoarding tendencies. Plankton's got that Napoleon complex cranked up to 11. The guy's whole existence revolves around proving he's bigger and more important than his tiny size suggests. You literally need a telescope to see him during chases half the time. His entire villain arc is just inferiority complex with extra steps. Pearl's teenage drama? Body dysmorphia. She's constantly worried about image and appearance, and remember the whole phase where she completely made over the Krusty Krab into something unrecognizable because of her insecurities? That's not just being a teenager. And finally, Gary. Good old Gary is the therapy animal. He's always there with subtle guidance, like when he showed up with newspapers at just the right moment, gently steering SpongeBob towards solutions. He's the emotional support keeping this whole operation running. So, that's the theory. Okay, so if this was just about character traits, fine, we're all overthinking a cartoon. But there are specific episodes that make you go, holy crap, what in the world were the writers doing? Let's talk Are You Happy Now? This episode is dark. Squidward's in a full depressive spiral, can't remember being happy, and the show literally depicts him considering putting his head in an oven and tying a rope. I'm not exaggerating. This aired on Nickelodeon. If Bikini Bottom's a mental hospital, we're watching a patient in crisis. Then there's Squidward's visit. SpongeBob recreates Squidward's entire house to trick him into visiting. And it's all stark white, sterile, institutional, like a padded cell. Plus, he's made 492 self-portraits of Squidward. That's not quirky neighbor stuff. That's obsessive documentation, like a caretaker monitoring a patient. But one course meal is the worst. Mr. Krabs psychologically tortures Plankton by exploiting his whale phobia. And there's literally a scene where Plankton stands in the street waiting for a bus to hit him. The power dynamic of an authority figure abusing a vulnerable patient. It's all there. And the environmental details. Rewatch with this theory in mind. Everything's weirdly sterile. White walls, bare-bone buildings. The Krusty Krab looks like a cafeteria. Plus, reality just breaks sometimes. Talking hot sauce bottles, constant fourth wall breaks. What if those are moments the collective illusion cracks? SpongeBob's mood swings are wild too. In The Secret Box, he goes from anxious to violent in seconds, literally ripping his arms off. That's not normal, but medication adjustments would cause that. And the goofy goober scene in the movie? Two adults regressing in a kid's ice cream parlor, singing about feelings? That's group therapy, isn't it? Recreational therapy where patients work through trauma in a playful space? I bet you can't unsee it now. Okay, before you write this off as overanalysis, let's talk about Steven Hillenburg. The creator had a marine biology degree and was a teacher. That's not a random combo, it's crucial. Marine biologists observe behaviors and identify patterns. Teachers work with kids across the whole spectrum: ADHD, learning disabilities, behavioral issues. You're telling me someone with that exact background accidentally created characters that perfectly match specific psychological conditions? Come on. Watch the new Student Starfish with this in mind. SpongeBob's eager but distracted, struggles with authority. Patrick can't grasp basic concepts. Mrs. Puff is perpetually stressed like an overwhelmed caretaker. Hillenburg knew these classroom dynamics intimately. At Nickelodeon, they've always done this. Courage the Cowardly Dog shows a traumatized dog in constant terror. Fans think we're seeing normal life through his paranoid perspective. Ed, Edd and Eddy has that whole they're dead and in purgatory theory because the show's timeless and surreal with no adults around. Dark undertones masked as kids' entertainment is literally Nickelodeon's brand. But here's what really convinces me: the tonal inconsistency. SpongeBob oscillates wildly between surreal cartoon logic and disturbing realism. Procrastination has a full nightmare sequence, claustrophobic, anxiety-inducing, genuinely unsettling. Wormy hits you with that horrifying realistic horsefly close-up that traumatized everyone. Why inject nature documentary horror into a goofy cartoon unless you're showing cracks in the illusion? Meanwhile, episodes like The Chaperone feel almost normal, structured, like supervised social events at a facility. No Weenies Allowed has the salty spittoon operating like a controlled environment with strict entry requirements. The show constantly shifts between dreamlike absurdity and stark reality. And you know what does that? Mental health struggles. Perceptions shift. Some days everything's cartoonishly exaggerated. Others, it's overwhelming and raw. Maybe SpongeBob isn't hiding a mental hospital theory. Maybe it's deliberately exploring mental health through a lens kids can actually process. Alright, if Bikini Bottom is really a treatment facility, then everything clicks into place in the most unsettling way possible. Jellyfishing? That's not just fun. It's outdoor recreation therapy. Watch that opening scene. Wide open space, structured activity, distant supervision. Classic low-stress physical therapy for patients. The Krusty Krab is occupational therapy. Look at Employee of the Month, the rigid routine, repetitive tasks, how SpongeBob finds comfort in structure. Mr. Krabs isn't a greedy boss. He's running a work program teaching job skills and responsibility. Employee of the Month is literally behavioral rewards and positive reinforcement. Mermaid Man in Barnacle Boy 3? That's group therapy, cooperative play, conflict resolution, social skills development. Chocolate with Nuts has them going door to door selling chocolate. That's socialization therapy, building confidence through low-stakes public interaction. Suddenly, the geography makes perfect sense. Jellyfish Fields equals outdoor recreation area. Krusty Krab equals occupational therapy cafeteria. Goo Lagoon equals water therapy exercise area. The houses equal patient quarters. Everything's walking distance, no cars, just patients moving between designated facility areas. Bikini Bottom isn't a town, it's a psychiatric ward. And the Chum Bucket, that's the other facility for patients who can't integrate. That's why Plankton's always alone, always scheming to take over. He's desperate to rejoin the main program to prove he belongs. Here's why this theory has lasted over a decade. It's darkly comforting. We want to believe SpongeBob is struggling with real issues. Because if he is, and he's still laughing, still showing up, still unshakably enthusiastic, then maybe there's hope for us. The anxiety, depression, loneliness, desperate need to be liked, it's all there, just under the surface. We recognized it as kids, even if we couldn't name it. SpongeBob always felt like more than a kid's show. So, does this episode actually confirm the mental hospital theory? Well, Steven Hillenburg never confirmed this theory, and honestly, he probably never will. But whether you believe it or not, this has changed how millions see the show. Once you notice it, you can't unsee it. Hooky suddenly feels like patience lost in delusion. Best Day Ever looks like coordinated therapy. The theory works because SpongeBob always operated on multiple levels. Kids see silly cartoons. Adults see anxiety and trauma in bright colors. Maybe that's intentional. Maybe we're just desperate to find meaning in childhood nostalgia. Either way, if SpongeBob was tackling mental health all along, that makes it even more powerful than we thought. So what do you think? Is Bikini Bottom a mental hospital? Are these characters patients working through their conditions? Or is this just fans reading way too deep into a cartoon about a talking sponge? Comment below with your take.